Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar presentation titled Travel Bans and Visa Restrictions. My name is Ron Hoppe. I have the privilege of serving as CEO of Worldwide Health Staff Solutions, and I'm excited to be joined by Ann Rose Lewis-Johnson, who is our Director of Legal Services here at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. We're excited to be able to present this webinar presentation in response to many inquiries and many questions that we've received regarding travel ban and related questions. There's many questions. There's some information that candidates have shared with us that would probably benefit from being clarified. So we hope to be able to do that today as well in helping everyone's understanding of exactly what the travel bans are, how they apply, visa restrictions, what are they really, what do we expect going forward, etc. So we're looking forward to an information packed presentation today. Just before we jump in, a couple of things that I always like to share as we start these sessions. If you would be so kind and just take a moment using the chat section of your screen, just drop us a quick note and let us know where you're joining us from today. We see many of you have and are already doing that, but if you haven't yet, just said hello and let us know where you are joining from. We're always very interested to see the many different countries that are represented when we have one of these webinar presentations. So if you would do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Secondly, Ann Rose and myself will be happy to respond to questions specifically related to our topic today. If you have an existing immigration case and you have questions specifically around that case related to your case, and if you are a Worldwide Health Staff applicant, I'd encourage you strongly to connect directly with your assigned case manager. If you are not an existing Worldwide Health Staff applicant, just please jot your question in the chat. And if we can't respond to you in the course of our time together today, we'll make an effort to circle back and get you the information that you need. So with that being said, by way of introduction, and thank you to everyone who's chiming in. We see we have representatives or attendants from many different countries, from Kenya, Philippines, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Zambia, Ghana, Nigeria, and many more. So thank you for joining us today. And Rose, hello, welcome.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for being part of our presentation today. I know you've done a lot of work specifically on these topics. So why don't we jump right in? And if you would take just a moment and talk to us about the different types of travel bans that are currently in place. If we can go to the next slide, please. There's something called a full travel ban and something called a restricted travel ban. So if you could just at a high level give us an overview of these different types of travel bans and what they mean.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Ron, and welcome to everyone who has joined us so far. I see a lot of countries here, even from my own country. I saw somebody from Jamaica, so welcome. So with regards to the travel bans that we have currently, there are the full what we refer to as the full travel ban, and of course what we refer to as the restricted travel ban. And the distinction between that, just to be brief, is the full travel ban. What that means is currently the NVC will not be issuing visas to any individual from that country unless, of course, you somehow or qualify from one of the exceptions that's been laid out in the proclamation that President Trump issued in June 9th. The restricted travel ban only applies to certain visa types, okay? And individuals from from countries that is impacted by the restricted travel ban will still receive visas. They will have more heightened vetting of their application, of course, but those individuals from that country that's impacted on the restricted travel ban can still proceed with obtaining a U.S. visa, depending on how the application process works out. Okay,
All
we'll
right.
go into the
Very
different countries and more details further on in the presentation as well.
right, right. Thank you for that, Ann Rose. If we could get to the next slide. So the topic, or I'm sorry, the title of our presentation today is Travel Ban and Visa Restrictions. So Ann Rose just shared with us a high-level overview of the different types of travel bans. Ann Rose, could you now, likewise give us an overview of what these visa restrictions are?
Yes. So now we have, in addition to the travel ban, we have visa restrictions, right? And what that is now specifically tied to B1, B2 visas. Okay. So what that means is the NVC through the State Department has now said for non-immigrant visa restricted to single entry for a shorter period of time. For instance, if you are accustomed to visiting the United States for summer holiday and you have what we call a 10-year indefinite visa, and you are accustomed to traveling to the US for the summer with your family for maybe 3-4 months, 6 months sometimes, now the State Department is saying we are going to reduce that time for your single entry visa, and that time could be as short as 3 months. Okay. And that will impact non-immigrant visas, not immigrant visas, which is typically what a good bit of our candidates will be coming into the US with what we refer to as an immigrant visa. So the visa restriction, to be very mindful, is only restricted to non-immigrant visas. That's your F1B visas, your H1B visas, and your B1, B2 visas. Okay. And then we have the bond. So there's another visa restriction that was recently implemented, and that is a bond, right? So that a bond requirement right now is only restricted to 2 countries. That is Malawi and Zambia, and that is only for B1, B2 visa applicants. Okay. So, and we'll get into more details what the specifics are for the bond requirement, what the specifics are for the visa restrictions that we discussed.
All right, very good. Now, just for sake of clarity, Ann Rose, in case somebody doesn't know, B1, B2 refers to U.S. visitors visa.
U.S. visitors visas, yes. So you may be coming to the U.S. a short term, either for a business trip. Maybe you work for a company that has presence outside the U.S., but their headquarters is in the U.S., like our company does, right? And we may have somebody coming in from one of our other offices abroad to visit. They could visit the U.S. for brief work practices, or if you're coming in on a B2 visa with your family, which is specifically as a tourist to visit, to have for vacation purposes.
Okay, excellent. We can go to the next slide, please. Ann Rose, I'd like us to dig into the full travel ban in some more detail. So if you would just kind of walk our guests through exactly, in some detail, what the full travel ban means.
Yes.
And just quickly, let's enumerate the affected countries.
Correct. The full travel ban, as I stated before, that means that the State Department or NVC will not be issuing visas to any individuals who are impacted, who are a citizen of these countries, right? Unless you have one of the exemptions that were laid out that's applicable to you. Now, as we all know, this travel ban went into effect on June 9th of this year, and it impacts all visa categories, not only non-immigrant visas, it also impacts immigrant visa categories, unless you have one of the exceptions that is applicable to you. The 12 countries that are impacted currently are laid out here on this slide: Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, the Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. So right now, if you are a citizen of any one of these countries, right, you will not be able to obtain a visa to visit the United States unless one of the exemptions that were laid out is applicable to you.
Okay.
Okay?
I know we'll talk about those exemptions in a
Yes.
little while, but
Mhm.
just it's noted here on the slide, and I just want to reconfirm with you, Ann Rose, that for these countries that are listed here, the visa ban really is absolute, right?
Absolutely.
It
Yes.
applies to all visa
All
categories,
visa types. Mhm.
students, visitors, you name it.
Yeah.
There's no visas being issued.
No visas being issued unless one of the exemptions, if you're lucky enough to have one of the exemptions apply to you.
Yeah, all right. Very good. If we could go to the next slide, and Ann Rose, similarly, if you would take a few minutes and just for the benefit of our guests, dive in a little deeper on the partial travel ban.
Mhm.
There's a lot of information here, and it's important that people are clear
Mhm.
on the differences between the full ban and the partial ban. So if you'd please just kind of dig into that for us for a few minutes so that we can fully understand how the travel ban, the partial ban works, and maybe how it's different from the full ban.
Sure. So the big difference here is the partial travel ban. If you are a citizen of a country that's impacted by the partial travel ban, that doesn't mean that you cannot enter the US, right? Right now, you are still able to apply for visas and enter the US. What individuals from those countries will experience is what we call heightened security, heightened vetting, right? So your application process will be more scrutinized by the State Department, USCIS, and government officials. Okay. Specifically, right now, the visa types that are getting the most heightened scrutiny from countries with that has a partial ban is the B1, B2 visa, F visas, M and J visas. Even though you may still come in with a H-1B visa, you will still see some type of a heightened security on your application process. The big distinction here is we do not see that having an impact on the EB3 visa, right, which is the immigrant visa, which most of our applicants are in process for, and that's the visa that they will be issued when they actually show up at the embassy and come to the U.S. So the big distinctions here for our audience base right now is H-1B visas and the EB3 visas are not specifically laid out as what will be impacted for the partial travel ban. But of course, we see that all visa types are getting additional vetting. Okay, but the good news is those specific visas are not laid out specifically here.
Yeah.
And of course, the countries that are impacted is a small number of countries, 7 countries, and they're laid out here on the slide for us: Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Okay, so if you're from one of those countries or citizen from one of those countries, it's not all bad news. You could still go through your application process. It's just that you will see a heightened security vetting.
Okay, so partial ban applies only to these countries that are listed here
Yes,
that you've just called out. So good.
yes.
And it only applies to certain types of visas, which are also
Mhm.
listed here, B1, B2, F being the student visa.
Yes.
Maybe just call out the M and J visa for the benefit of our guests in case somebody doesn't know what those are.
Yeah, so the M visa are like trade visas, like a trade type visas, like you want to come to the US to do like some type of a trade school, right? And the J visas are reserved for, you could have teachers come into the US on that. You could have like a visitor exchange program, individuals come into the US on a J visa, so they would come in temporarily to work. And then usually for 2-year periods, and then they will go back to their country of birth. So those visas, while it may impact from our experience, is not a very large number of individuals that will be impacted by those two visas. The B1, B2, and F visa categories of course, are more impactful because the F category is for students. And we have a large number of students that typically come into the US to study. So
Right.
with this heightened security on the F visa, it's very impactful for those individuals.
Okay. We can go to the next slide, please. We mentioned, visa restrictions earlier. Um, this whole idea of visa reciprocity, Anne Rose, if you could just
Mhm.
explain what this is
Yes.
and how it might impact some of our candidates or someone who may be thinking of starting on their immigration journey.
Sure. So the visa reciprocity usually is implicated when the United States look at a particular country that may have laid out some restriction on US citizens. For instance, if you live in Nigeria and Nigeria somehow laid out some restriction on US citizens coming into their country with regards to the visa fee or the limit on the visa or some restriction on the time that you spend there or the validity. And if the United States see where any country is doing that to its citizens, then in kind, pretty much it does the same thing. So that's the reciprocal relationship that we're talking about here. This, in the event that it does occur, only impacts non-immigrant visas. Again, the distinction is the immigrant visas for EB3 category, which is for most of our audience. This only would have an implication for our H-1B candidates. Okay, so if you're from a country that the United States has somehow established the visa reciprocity and you have a H-1B visa, you may be caught up with this where the State Department may try to limit your time in the United States. What we are seeing now and what we are telling those candidates who are from a country that was issued with the visa reciprocity is that you would still proceed to enter the United States with your H-1B visa. At your port of entry, you would then present the approval notice that you received from USCIS, and that will show your validity period. And typically, we know for H-1B visas, your first entrance into the US would be for a period of 3 years. So what we expect to happen at your port of entry is the Border Customs and Border Patrol's officer would not then limit that individual to 3 years, but that Customs and Border Patrol would in fact follow what's on the visa approval notice from USCIS, and that person would be allowed to enter into the United States based on the validity period of their H-1B visas.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So very, very good explanation. And more to, I guess, watch to see, how this unfolds and if other countries are placing any types of requirements on travel by US citizens to their countries.
Yeah.
The one last thing, again, just to dive into a little deeper, if we can go to the next slide, please. You had mentioned bonds and that
Yeah.
these bonds applied only to 2 countries, which is good, I guess.
Mhm.
But just for the benefit of our guests, just kind of lay out how this bond process works. So, just for awareness.
Correct. Yes. So the bond, this is a pilot program that came out and it went into effect in August. Essentially, this derived from the State Department doing a deep dive into individuals from certain countries that the statistics shows have a high overstay in the United States. And what does that mean? That is, these individuals entered in the US with a non-immigrant visas and they did not depart at the time their authorized stays expired. So they've identified a number of countries with citizens with large number of overstays on non-immigrant visas in the US. And that is as a result why this program came about. And the goal is to reduce the number of individuals from those countries that would then be able to enter the US because of the cost, right? So what happened is these 2 countries right now, Malawi and Zambia, if you are in Malawi and Zambia and you're a citizen of these countries and you are planning to enter the US on a B1, B2 visa, And that is the only visa type that is currently applicable to this. And that is for tourism or short-term business visits. You are then required to post a bond of either 5,000 US dollars, 10,000 US dollars, or 15,000 US dollars per person for a single entry, right? And you're only allowed to come in for 3 months. If you, of course, most people will not be, you don't know what the amount will be. When you apply, you will be given that information at the time your visa is approved, and then you will be required to post that fund, that bond, before you could actually enter the United States. And if you are able to post the bond and then you enter, then you must enter through one of 3 airports that would be equipped to make the proper vetting and scrutiny that is required for the bond requirement, and that is the Boston local airport, New York's JFK, or Washington right now. And only the B1, B2 visas are implicated. Non-immigrant, immigrant visas are not implicated. H-1B visas are not implicated. So if you are in Malawi or Zambia, the only individuals that will be impacted is if you're trying to come to the US and a B1, B2 visa as a visitor, right? Not if you're coming in with your EB3 visa or your H-1B visa. So I just want to make that very clear to individuals on this call.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. So I just want to clarify that if someone was required and was able to post a bond, right, would it be correct, Ann Rose, to say that if they left the United States within the validity period of their visa, that bond is then released?
Yes.
Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a matter of putting up a bond. It's not a matter of having to actually pay this amount to enter the US. It's kind of insurance that you're going to
Insurance, so
leave.
to speak. Yes.
That you're going to leave.
Right.
The other thought while I was listening to you that crossed my mind, have you heard whether there's any thought being given to expanding this program to other countries beyond Malawi or Zambia?
Yes, there is discussion of expanding this to other countries. And the criteria, sorry, that it's been used is for individuals from these countries who have long overstays. So if citizens of a particular country, citizens enter the US and they have a high number of overstays in the United States, then there's a high probability that that country will also be placed on this list for the bonds requirement. So the government is continuously looking at the data. They release statistics. So if, unfortunately, I believe more countries may fall on this list.
Okay, all right. We can go to the next slide, please. So with all of these developments and with all of this information, I'm sure, from the questions that we've been receiving, what's on top of mind beyond understanding these new requirements is how are US employers responding, right? Because obviously these bans and restrictions have implications for whether someone can even currently enter the country or even file an application.
All right.
So, and Rose, let's talk about that for a minute. So, U.S. employers where somebody is a citizen of a country that's subject to the full ban, the experience that we've had is there's huge reluctance, right, on the part of employers to start those applications because the great uncertainty as to when that individual may actually be able to arrive in the U.S. So interested in your thoughts and from what you've heard from employers across the country and their take on individuals from countries subject to the full ban.
Yeah, so currently, of course, employers are not inclined to extend job offers to those individuals. And that is made for, I would say, for the foreseeable end of this current administration. This is not something that's going to be permanent. And I think I would like to remind people of that fact that this travel ban is not what we refer to as statute or regulation or law. It came about as a result of an executive order that was issued by our current administration. So this travel ban is expected to last throughout the entirety of this current administration. And we're only about, what, 8, 9 months in, right? The distinction here versus the previous Trump administration is they have laid out some exceptions to this rule, right? So it's not an outright travel ban as was done in the previous administration. So they did learn from the mistakes that they made previously, and this travel ban was crafted in a way that would overcome any potential litigation. And that is in the exemptions that were laid out. Specifically because US visas are not, and the framework is US visas are not what we refer to as a right? It's a privilege. And unfortunately, the government has the right to extend that privilege to certain people and to withdraw it if they so chooses. So the way in which the full travel ban was crafted this time around was done meticulously because they learned from previous mistakes. So we expect that this travel ban will last to the end of this administration. So for that reasons, of course, employers are reluctant to extend offers to those people who would fall and not be able to take advantage of any of the restrictions because of the time that would be required, the involvement of time, and of course, the financial investment as well from the employers.
Yeah.
So for those two reasons, they're a bit reluctant at this time. But there are other
Yeah.
options though, right? And we'll get into that a little
We'll
bit.
get into that.
Yeah.
So pretty clear, if you're a citizen of a country that's on the full ban list and you haven't yet started on your immigration journey to the US, really, I would dare say go as far as to say not possible at this time,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's. How about if you're a citizen, Ann Rose, of a full ban country, and let's say you have an existing visa application. Let's say a petition's been filed, the petition's approved. Maybe you've even paid the visa fee bill. Kind of where does this development leave those individuals?
So right now, for those individuals, the best way to put it is your application is in a holding status. We do not expect the NVC or the embassy to issue any type of an appointment for you to show up for an interview. Okay, they are not currently unilaterally like doing anything to terminate or cancel those applications. They are just in a sitting position right now.
Okay.
And that is because, again, something may change in the future. So at this time, if you are somebody who is from one of these countries, you do not qualify for any of the exemptions. Your application will be in a hold position, and you should not be getting any appointment from the embassy to show up for an interview.
Yeah, okay. All right. So if you have an existing petition, it isn't being canceled, but
No,
it's also not moving forward. It's
right.
like you said, it's in a holding pattern.
Yes.
All right, and we'll talk a little bit more about, how candidates should be responding here in a few moments. So that's the full ban.
Mhm.
Now, the partial ban, if you're from a country that's on the partial ban list, that reality is quite a bit different. Can you I know we've
Yes.
spoken to this already, but just
Mhm.
review it again quickly, because it only applies to one or two visa categories, etc. So if I'm
Yeah.
from a partial ban country and I'm looking to get started on my immigration journey to arrive in the US as a permanent resident, how does this impact me?
So essentially right now, no impact, right? So if you're looking to immigrate to the US, EB3 visa, non-immigrant visa, partial ban has no impact on those individuals from those countries that's listed. So you should still proceed with your application. You will go through the process as usual. The only thing you may see is you will see heightened security vetting of your application. Okay, and that is not unusual in certain cases. So if you are from the countries that are listed, those seven, one of those seven countries, and you want, to explore job opportunity in the US, don't worry, proceed ahead. Normal procedure for those individuals. Only issue is you may have some heightened vetting of your application.
Okay, so good news.
Yeah.
Certainly clearly different impact
Mm-hmm.
on individuals from full ban countries versus partial ban countries.
Yes.
So in the context of looking to come, as a healthcare professional to the US, really the partial ban, if you're from a partial ban country, really has no immediate or no direct impact on your ability to move forward.
Correct.
All right, awesome. All right, if we can go to the next slide, please. So we've provided a lot of information. Some of it is not so bad news. Other parts of it will be received as not good news for certain. But we also don't want to leave it there. We want to talk about options, right? Because
Right.
there are options, and there are options for everyone. So let me speak to the first one or two here. I think, as you take a look at the opportunity of living and working in the United States, if there was no travel ban, right, processing times are currently, just a little bit more than 24 months. They're about 27, 28 months currently. So, whether you're from a travel ban country, a full ban country or not, I think the number one thing that everybody can do right now, regardless of where you are, is to focus on and complete the US requirements, right? Those being primarily the NCLEX exam and visa screen, right? And in order to get visa screen, that also means has rolled up in it the English language exam. So whether you're currently subject to a ban or not, if your goal is coming to the US, you're going to have to complete NCLEX to even get the immigration process started, and you're going to need visa screen. So there's no prohibition for anyone from completing these things. And then secondly, something that everybody can do while they're waiting either for their application that's currently on hold, or if they're thinking about getting started on their journey to the US, right? This time that it may take for this issue to be changed in some way, if it is, right, it would be for you to consider working abroad in some country other than the US, possibly for a 2 or 3 year contract where you could get additional valuable bedside experience, right? That would be making good use of your time. And happy to share that at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions, we are partnering now with top healthcare providers in other parts of the world. So we're not just recruiting to the US, we're also working with top tier providers in the GCC in particular, where they have some fantastic opportunities where you can grow professionally, advance in your career, and improve your position economically, even as you wait to get started then on your further journey to the US. So those are a couple practical things that you can do. But Ann Rose, a really interesting thing here that I find with the travel ban is the ban is based on your country of citizenship,
Correct.
not necessarily your country of birth,
Yes.
which is different, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
different from how visa allocations are calculated,
Yes.
because they're calculated on based of country of birth, regardless
Mm-hmm.
of where you're living or where you're a citizen.
Correct.
So take a moment and just dig into this issue of dual citizenship
Mm-hmm.
and how individuals from full ban countries may be able to use dual citizenship to move forward with their applications without delay?
Sure. Yeah. So this is a point of confusion because we're so accustomed to country of birth being the criteria that's used for the visa allocation. But distinctively, with regards to the travel ban, your country of citizenship is what's been used. So, for example, if you are from Iran, you were born in Iran, you naturally are a citizen of Iran, you're currently living, let's say, in Canada or the UK, and you are now a citizen of Canada or you're a citizen of the UK. What that means is your passport showing that you are now a citizen or a national of either UK or Canada. That is the passport that will be used to process your application, thereby eliminating the travel ban that would be impacted or the travel ban that would be imposed on you as somebody who was born in Iran. So that's the huge distinction with regards to the travel ban versus how visa categories are allocated. That is still tied to your country of birth for how your visa application moves along in the queue. But for your application being processed, then the travel ban is specific to your current citizenship.
Yeah. So that's a hugely important point. I think I saw even a question about this in the chat.
Mhm.
So if you are, so just in summary, if you are born in a country that is currently on the full ban list, but you are also currently a citizen of a country that is not on the full ban list, right? You have a path forward
Mhm.
in a way where that travel ban wouldn't really apply to you fully. So really super important distinction. And if you've been living in another country for several years already, and you're just a year or two away from being able to obtain citizenship,
Mhm.
I think it's great to be aware that that citizenship would, in fact, not be subject, that new citizenship wouldn't be subject to the current travel ban as it's constructed. So
Sure.
really important distinction there. Um, there are some exemptions. We've referred to
Yes.
exemptions, and I don't know how many of these are going to apply to our guests here, but I think it's worth taking a few moments just to review them. And
Yes.
as I say that, I'll just remind everyone that you will have access to a recording of this presentation. So if you want to go back and re-listen or listen to a portion of the discussion today, you'll be able to do that probably 24 hours from now by just going to our YouTube channel at Worldwide Health Staff Solutions. And there you'll find a recording of this presentation and all of our previous presentations on a wide variety of topics. But please know that you'll be able to review this information. And I'd also invite you and encourage you that if you have a friend or a colleague that you think would be interested in the information we're covering today and may benefit from it, please be sure to share the link to our YouTube channel and this presentation in particular with them. So exemptions. There are a number of exemptions. We're going to go through a couple of slides worth of exemptions. Again, I don't know how many of these are going to apply to our guests, but I still think it's important for awareness and information. So Anne Rose, I'll turn it back to you if you can
Sure.
walk us through what these various exemptions are and who they apply to.
Sure. Yeah, so as I stated previously, the travel ban this time around was very carefully thought out in how they approached it. And for that reason, we're not seeing litigations against the current travel ban. And that is because we have these exemptions that were laid out, and individuals who would be considered impacted or have a damaging on either a US citizen, relative or spouse, or a resident of the US are carved out. So of course, the first category are individuals who are legal permanent residents. They're not impacted, right? And also to remind people that if you already had a visa prior to June 9th, then you're not part of this and you are in the United States already. You're not part of the travel ban that's impacted. So that's also important to remind people. All immediate relatives of certain of a U.S. citizen, meaning your spouse of a U.S. citizen, a child of a U.S. citizen, or a parent of a U.S. citizen, the travel ban is not going to apply to you. Okay, so these carve outs is why we're seeing not a lot of challenge to this current travel ban. Participants in major sporting events, again, athletes, coaches, support staff, etc., and their immediate family members, those individuals will not be impacted as well by the travel ban.
Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, so
Some
then we have
additional exemptions.
additional exemptions. It's quite a bit, right? And then we have the visa holders of certain visas. So if you are in the process for an adoption, Afghan special immigrant visas for U.S. government employees, immigrant visas for ethnic and religious minorities facing persecution in Iran. So of course, we've fielded some questions with regards to the specific exemptions from some candidates. And we have given guidance to our case managers to work with those individuals who feel that they would be applicable to this particular exemption if you are from Iran. And so if you are, and you think that you may be, this particular exemption may apply to you, then you should still reach out to us and then we'll go over the guidelines that we've set out that we think would work for those people. Okay. Then you have the U.S. national interest exemptions. So these are foreign national interests, people coming into the U.S. for furtherance of national interests of the United States as determined by the Secretary of State. Okay. So again, exemptions for those individuals. And I believe there's one last slide on that one.
Okay.
Yes, so asylees and refugees. So individuals who already admitted into the U.S. as an asylee or refugee are exempt from the travel ban, and individuals who could prove that they are the Convention Against Torture and they could prove that they may be subjected to that, then you would be exempt from the travel ban. And typically this is in a war-torn country. So if you're in one of these countries that's on the full ban, it's a war-torn country and you're maybe subjected to some type of torture against humanity, then you may be exempt from the travel ban. But with this entire list, there's only two categories that could potentially be applicable to the audience that we're facing or the candidates that we sometimes support. And that is if you are from Iran and you are a member of one of those ethnic groups or minority groups, or if you are on the travel ban list and you may have citizenship in a country that's not, then those two categories are specifically for individuals that would apply to us that we see where we could support an application going forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. And lastly, let's just kind of recap some of the things we've been talking about. I see there's a number of questions have come in, and I'd like us to get to that. So if we just go to the next slide, please. We'll go back one slide. I'm sorry. Okay, forward one slide. Forward one slide. All right, so straight into questions and answers. We can recap as we go through the questions. So with that, I'll invite our colleague Allie to join us. Allie's been monitoring the chat over the course of our presentation today. And Allie, I'll turn it over to you to start navigating us through some of the questions that have come in.
Okay, great. And you did answer a lot of the questions throughout the presentation, but I do have a couple. What is the future of the travel ban? Will it be expanded to include more countries, or will some be removed from the list?
And Rose, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. So one of the criteria that was laid out for the countries that are now under travel ban is 90 days after the travel ban was implemented, which was on June 9th. Those countries could somehow submit documentation to the United States government to be removed from that list. Okay. They had the first 90-day period would have allotted, and that would be due on the 9th of September. So if there are countries that's currently on the list that may be removed, if that's going to happen, we will know that in a couple weeks or so. If there are countries that will be added to the list, we will also be aware of that. Initially, we heard rumors of an additional 36 countries or something being added to this list. As of today, that has not happened. So it still remains for the full travel ban, these 12 countries that were initially laid out at this time.
And
Do
then
we think, Anne Rose, sorry to interrupt, do we think that other countries could be added?
Yes, we do believe other countries could be added, because there was a couple of months ago, there was a huge, there was information floating around that another 36 countries or something it will be added to this list. So we still believe that is possible, that it will happen, and this list will be expanded. And that is based on information that the US government may have on these particular countries. So right now, we believe it's possible, but nothing to support that, or if a new date or anything of that sort is happening anytime soon.
Okay, good.
And regarding a parent of a U.S. citizen exemption, would that apply even if the child is a minor? This person has heard that it only applies to a child if they're above 21 years old.
Yes, so minors are still applicable to that. So if a parent of a U.S. citizen child would be exempt from the travel ban.
And this person is an RN in the EB3 process with a Finnish and Iranian citizenship. Their husband is an Iranian citizen with a Finnish residency. Can he get a travel ban exemption as a derivative?
Repeat that. Repeat the question. Yeah.
Yep. So they are a Finnish Iranian citizen, and
Okay.
their husband is an Iranian citizen with a Finnish residency. Can the travel ban exemptions be applied to them?
So the travel ban would be applicable to the primary applicant, right? So if you have Iranian with a Finnish citizenship, then yes, that person would be able to proceed with their visa application, as the travel ban would not be applicable. Okay. The spouse as well, if the spouse is also Finnish, then yes, the spouse could also accompany the primary applicant as a derivative beneficiary of that application using their Finnish citizenship, not their Iranian citizenship.
Yeah. Anne Rose, what if the spouse, I think she said, was a resident, not a citizen? So you have a primary applicant who's dual citizenship with a spouse that is an Iranian citizen, not a Finnish citizen. How would
So
that
this,
play out?
so the spouse would not benefit from that, unfortunately. Right? So even though the primary applicant would benefit, the spouse would not benefit because the spouse is not a citizen of a Finnish citizen. The spouse only has residency in that country.
And that spouse doesn't benefit, isn't in any way considered to be a beneficiary of the primary applicant who is the dual citizen?
Unfortunately, no, not under the
Okay,
travel ban.
understood. All right.
Yes.
Okay, Allie?
And how does the visa reciprocity in any way affect immigrant visas for Nigerians? Or is there a list of countries that it affects?
Yes, so there's a list of countries that it affects. That list, I believe it's about 50 countries that's on that list, right? It's a lot. So if Nigeria is on that list, then what does that mean for somebody coming into the US? If you're coming into the US as an RN, EB3 visa, then you're not subjected to the visa reciprocity, okay? The visa reciprocity is only applicable to individuals who are coming into the US with non-immigrant visas, be it a B1, B2, or F visa, M visa, J visa, or H1B visa. So if you're coming in as an EB3 non-immigrant visa, then the visa reciprocity rule is not applicable to you, even if your country of birth or country of citizenship is on the reciprocity list. Okay.
And if I'm applying for the H-1B visa and get the visiting period 3 months, will I be able to elongate my period of stay when I get there?
Well, hopefully that will not happen because at your time when you present yourself at the Border Patrol for port of entry, you would present your approved H-1B visa application notice that is received from USCIS, right? And that application, that approval notice form would have your validity period for your H-1B visas. So the only time we're seeing right now where individuals are getting less time at the port of entry is if their passport. So it's very important to make sure that your passport validity period surpasses your H-1B visa approval. Okay. So we are seeing that if you present yourself at the port of entry, the H-1B visa hold approval notice, and your passport expiration date will be less than your H-1B visa validity, your time in the US will be limited to your passport validity. So it's very important that when you present yourself at the port of entry, that your passport validity, the expiration date on your passport is longer than the validity date on your H-1B visa. If not, then you would be limited to that expiration date on your passport. And what that means, if you're from a country that's banned, then you run the risk of leaving and not being able to re-enter. Or we could attempt to have you get a valid passport, renew your passport and submit documentation for an extension. That is also not a guarantee. So it is very important that if you're from one of those countries, right, you say you get one bite at the apple, make that bite worth it, and do not shoot yourself in the foot with a passport that would expire sooner than your validity date on your H-1B visa approval notice. Okay.
And the next question, I'm Iranian and already invited for the embassy interview, but I've been told not to attend. How long is it possible to postpone the interview?
So you could always postpone your interview if you do not attend. If you attend your interview, your visa application will be denied, outright denied, right? Because you will not get the visa. If you postpone your interview, typically your visa is allotted to the whatever allotment for that time period. The NVC or the State Department will give you a year in order to move forward with that application. Otherwise, they will terminate that application. So you usually have a year for postponement. After that time period, they'll go ahead and terminate the application.
Okay. And we'll do a couple more questions. For those subjected to full travel ban and currently waiting for a petition approval, what is going to happen in the future? Should they wait until this government administration period is over? If so, will the employer wait another few years until the travel ban is lifted?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one, Allie. I think my answer is probably not going to be at all that helpful in that the answer, truthfully, is it depends. Right. On what you should do is it depends. And it depends on who your sponsoring employer is. Right. I think this question will be answered differently by different employers, whether they are willing to wait that period of time. I think part of it will be determined by what stage of the process you're currently in. Right? What stage of the process you're currently in. So unfortunately, I think the correct answer to that question is it will be looked at case by case, right? Case by case. So I think if you haven't yet started an application and you're from a full ban country and have no exemption opportunities, I'll just speak for Worldwide Health Staff. We're currently not recruiting those candidates simply because of the great unknown, not because they're not great candidates. It's simply a practical matter. So case by case, if you're in that circumstance, please, reach out to us and we'd be happy to respond specifically related to the circumstances of your case.
And in reference, I know we got a lot of questions about the visa bulletin upcoming for October. We do, We do have, Ron did a webinar recently, so check out
Yeah.
our YouTube channel to view that. If you do have any questions and kind of predictions, you can view that.
Yeah. And we also have an upcoming webinar for Visa Bulletin. Maybe if you can just drop if we have information available, drop that into the chat. That's coming up here in about 10 days' time. We expect the Visa Bulletin to be released anytime now and over the course of the next week, in all likelihood. So just like you, we're very much looking forward to seeing what that Visa Bulletin is going to give us. Who knows? It might even be out later today.
Yeah.
And let's see if we have any more questions. It looks like we're short on time. How can we prove that we belong to an ethnic society in Iran?
Oh, that's that again, back to what Ron says. That depends, right? So that is definitely will be a case by case review. If you believe that you may be part of that exemption, then you could still proceed and apply. What will happen is the recruiter will review with you the guidelines that we have laid out. And if based on that, you'll be able to provide documentation to support that, then that information will be reviewed by somebody on our legal team to verify that, yes, this person, it does in fact qualify, is a member of this group and has sufficient evidence to overcome that burden. The one thing to remember is there is no way to preemptively know if the State Department or the officer that will be interviewing you will say, yes, you are subject to this, and we're gonna approve your visa. We have no way of knowing that preemptively. That is a discretionary decision that will be made by the officer at the time of your interview. So that is still not a guarantee. And absent overwhelming evidence that we feel could overcome the burden of proof, because the burden of proof is on the candidate, right? You have to present your case because we cannot preemptively submit that to the government on your behalf.
Yeah. Very good. I think the bottom line is if you think you may qualify for that exemption, it'll be very important for that individual to be working with very experienced and competent immigration legal counsel because of the complexity of that type of application.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we are coming up on time. Allie, thanks for posting that our next Visa Bulletin webinar will be September 22nd at 9 a.m. Eastern. At that time, I'll be joined by at least one guest presenter. And our focus there will not just be to, walk through the September or the October Visa Bulletin, rather, but to also give you our interpretation and our analysis of what we think that Visa Bulletin is signaling for the rest of the fiscal year. So please be sure to put that on your calendar and join us at that time. I expect that's going to be a very, very lively presentation and conversation. With that, Ann Rose, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our guests this morning and today.
Yes.
I know there's still some questions that may not have been answered. If you are a current health staff candidate, again, your case manager is your best point of contact. If not, you can please reach out to us through our website or by email, and we would be happy to respond to you. Thank you for your interest. I hope you have found the information shared today to be helpful to you. Again, recording of this presentation will be posted on our YouTube channel at Worldwide Health Staff shortly. Also, before we close, remind everyone of the Worldwide Health Staff Refer a Nurse program. There's a link here. We have some individuals have referred 40, 50, 60 nurses to us successfully. It's a really great program. It's actually fun. And you can get paid very, very quickly. So please check out our Refer a Nurse program. All the details are also on our website. So with that, thank you again. We look forward to seeing you all on an upcoming presentation in the near future. Please continue to watch our social media channels for the latest information, not just on webinars, but on other topical information related to healthcare migration opportunities around the world, as well as just general information around how you can best advance your career around the globe. It's always a pleasure spending this time with you all. We look forward to seeing you again soon.